Well, how he's doing? Okay. I thought I'd talk about fertility rights, which involves uh, sex enhancers, stimulants, psychosexual stimulants. For example, the Metromute, okay, equals sexual pleasure. It's a plant. It's an herb. Then we have Natum Ankh, which is love pleasures. It says love pleasures make life worth living. Well, we have to get into actually what they were talking about and who was doing the talking. You see. But we'll say the first humans, though, their main concern was food and drink. Sexual reproduction was secondary. They wanted food. Sometimes it was hard to come by. And so eventually people got around to having these fertility rites, R-I-T-E, right, or rituals. And these rituals was concerned with, of course, the production of food from Mother Nature. So they had phallic festivals, for example, where people took to the streets during the festival occasion, and they had sex. Everybody was free for all. Even husbands would go out and make little huts and whatnot on the side of the road. So even when a stranger came by, he'd tell the stranger to go in and that he could have coitus with his wife. You know, it was happening all over the place. It was like a free-for-all, you know. If you were old enough, if you were at the age of puberty, then you can engage in these festivals because you had reproductive power, you see. But the power was used to say, according to the law of association, for example, they wanted Mother Nature, okay, to produce more food. So they engaged with each other lovingly. Through association, the idea was that Mother Nature would follow suit and produce an abundance of food. So this is a fertility festival, sometimes called the phallic festival, having to do with the lower member of both men and women. Both have phallus or phalli. Okay. So, but these festivals, you see, had a lot to do with displaying pleasure, which is all right, you know what I mean? But the idea was also to fertilize Mother Nature through association or through proxy or by proxy. Okay? But the folks in the temple, the priests and whatnot, they were more concerned with fertilizing the brain. You see. It so happened that semen, for example, could be used, remaining in the body, not taking its regular course out of the body, could be made to rise up, refined and made to rise up to stimulate the brain and other parts of the body. could be used as sort of a health potion. You see, and the same thing with the female with her reproductive fluids. The same thing can happen. It was good for, like I say, fertilizing the brain to produce more and more vivid imagery. Okay. Other words, we can say that, well, the pineal gland was reinforced, fortified, and made stronger, more active to produce more vivid imagery. Hence, of the third eye or the single eye, referring to the pineal gland. Okay. But also, the substance could be used to nourish and strengthen any part of the body. It so happened that the human could direct these fluids to go to the part of the body that he desired it to go to. When it came to the acquisition of knowledge, of course, the brain was number one priority. Send it to the brain. The notion was that knowledge was heaven and ignorance was hell. So, of course, they wanted to nourish the brain. Okay? But then there came the notion amongst even other people outside of the temple that the powerful erotic stimulation received, for example, through coitus, could be used to sustain imagery in the brain longer. And the imagery would be more vivid. You see, because of the thrill, the excitement from a coitus itself. So we know that when if a person is in a very passionate situation, whether love or whatever, okay, the imagery, okay, evoked in that situation will last with that person for a long time. Whether it was a fearful situation, whether it was a happy occasion or whatever, that passion, okay, would cause the imagery to stay with that person for a long time. Like we remember events, even from our childhood. Usually these were emotional or passionate events, whether it was a time of happiness or a time of sadness, a sad occasion, or a time when we were, or a person was greatly, let's say, feared, or experienced fear. Okay? So the imagery of the situation will stay with a person all through life. So see now, we see that the passions evoked, let's say in coitus, in conjunction with an image that we put on our mind at the time, that image would remain with us for a longer period of time. It so happens that it was believed that the imagery was the stuff that directed and sustained the human will. You see. So it's our will. We will things that we want. We want something to happen. We will it to occur. If that, whatever it is that we want, the image of what we want is retained in imagery for long periods of time, or other words, it could be evoked whenever we want to evoke it, then it would keep the will nourished, strong, and on track. on track to attract us to what we want, what we have willed to come about. You see. Now, this is done through sex, where sex or becomes a very powerful passion. And this passion will sustain an image in our consciousness, in our mind, for longer periods of time. We wouldn't forget the image. That's the idea, you see, which would lead our will, okay, to what we want. Whatever it is that we have willed, okay. So now we come to some of the powerful stimulants that were used for this very purpose. And people still use powerful sexual stimulants for this very purpose. I mentioned some of those, the Netrium, okay, and there is the Blue Lotus that we see in Kemite or ancient Egyptian iconography. And we see the red mushroom, which is a very powerful stimulant, and was used by, let's say, the first Christians, the ancient Christians. Okay, they seem to have been attracted to this particular herb because of its powerful ability to stimulate, okay, the sexual organs and through them the brain. Okay. Well, we say it's a powerful psychosexual stimulant. Okay. Used, it is said that this mushroom was used widely by the early Christians. Well, it was used by other folks too. And so it happens that the Christians got hold to it. Remembering now that Christianity didn't begin itself until the age of Pisces, about 2,300 years ago. Especially during the time when the Romans had conquered ancient Egypt, they were there and so forth and so on. So Christianity began there in Egypt. Well, the Christian religion then followed from an ancient African religion, the Assyrian cult, the Assyrian religion we can call it, which is about the last religion. Then came Christianity. It followed the Assyrian cult. Well, you've heard of Isis and Osiris, which this is Isis and Osiris are the Greek names. Okay, Osset and Osiris were the Kemite names, the ancient Egyptian names of this god, Osiris. Well, these two people, they also used in those cults powerful sexual stimulants for the reasons that I just mentioned. To enhance the power of imagery, to fertilize and stimulate the brain. That's what it was about, knowledge. And when especially the priests used these stimulants, that's what it was for. Aside from sexual pleasure, per se. The sexual pleasure itself was to help stimulate the brain, as we just mentioned. So the red lotus was used for that purpose. And it was apparently widespread in Christendom. Even after Christians moved, let's say, the base of Christianity from Egypt to Rome, it was widely used. And when the fighters in the Crusades come back to Europe, come home from the Crusades, they too brought all sorts of stimulants, to Europe and the Christian folks, where these stimulants were used, especially by the wealthy people, uh, we can say excessively. They used it quite a bit, like people do today. Really, no difference. You know what I mean? Probably it wasn't. What they do today, they did then. It's really nothing new. But anyway, the red lotus is very popular among the red mushroom was very popular among the Christians. This psychedelic drug was also very much in the keeping of the ancient Egyptians and other the Mideastern countries. They all use it. They all had these fertilization festivals where they fertilized either through proxy Mother Nature or the folks in the temple fertilized their brain. You know, they wanted knowledge, brain production, okay, of knowledge. This is what they were after, you know. And the folks outside the temple, well, they were after food and eventually sexual pleasure, you see. So this is an idea, a quick a peep at the fertilization festivals and their purpose and who used them for what, so forth and so on. So through coitus, they fertilized Mother Nature. They made their appeal to Mother Nature for more food, an abundance of food through the law of association. You see, the women were representing Mother Nature when they went out to these festivals and had like free for all. They were representing Mother Nature, you see. And Mother Nature presumably would follow in suit and produce an abundance of food, you see. Children, by the way, the production of children, well, that was secondary, as I said, you know. But it was also involved if there was a woman who wanted a child, yeah, okay. That was a good place to start, I imagine, you know. So that's the way it went with the fertilization. That's a brief, really, on fertilization festivals and how it sort of got started, you know. It was for food. And then it became used for the production of brain power, the acquisition of knowledge. That was key for the folks in the temple, the priests. The folks, the everyday folks, they were concerned with food. And so when they had their fertility rituals, it was for food. They were making an appeal to Mother Nature for abundance of food. So Christianity succeeded the Assyrian cult, which used these, had these fertility festivals also. So Christianity came next in the age of Pisces and followed suit. They did the same thing that the folks have been doing in Africa because, like I said, Christianity originated in Africa. It came on the heels of the Assyrian cult. And at the end of a cult, which usually, this particular cult, precessional period, this cult would last about, let's say, 2,200 years. Then another cult would come in. So it's been about 2,200 years now. And so in the olden days, it would have changed. We would be into another cult. We would have come out of Christianity and went into another cult. But we haven't done that. It's the religious leaders, you see, who would tell the people, you know, that the so-called nutters or gods have changed. You change into a different god. Well, the folks who are in the Assyrian cult, we come into the cult of Christ or Jesus Christ at the age of Pisces. Now we're in the age of Aquarius, then we'd be in another cult. But it hasn't happened, you see. Somebody's not keeping up with the movement or the apparent movement of the stars. Somebody's not keeping up with something, you see. And so that's the way it went with the fertility cults. And people still conduct these rituals in some parts of the world. Maybe, I know the Native Americans used to. They probably still do, at fertility cults, you see. And people in other countries like India and Africa and other parts of Asia too, you know. And the folks in Australia, the folks in the South Pacific, they probably still have these cults. Even though many of them have converted to Christianity, they still do it. The Christians did years ago. So that's the way it goes with the fertility cults. And I was glad to talk to you about it, shed a little insight about it, and subscribe. There's many, many things we can talk about and discuss, okay, about ancient times, the mythologies and so forth and so on. Okay, thank you.